This is on. So we are here with Mike Benson and Jake Donovan from Legacy Mortgage LLC. We've kind of done these in succession, but the episodes will come out in various timelines. So we're now just here, the four of us. I think Dale's had a good chance to meet the both of you and get an idea of who you are and why you're here talking to us.
Well, we had met at our office, so it's not like I didn't know who they were. And, of course, their employer is a good friend of mine. So
right. Yeah,
it's a great firm.
And I think that's actually a really great jumping off point is to speak to Rob Messenger, who you've known for a long time, who you now both work with regularity and is somewhat of a mentor to both of you at the, or is a mentor. It doesn't have to be somewhat. Yeah, is a mentor. Yep. How long have you known Rob, Dale?
Oh, well, since he started with title, that's got to be a long time ago. When maybe
it was like 22 years.
Is it that long ago?
20, 22 years, something like that.
Yeah, we always did. Title was kind of the innovator of this format that you guys are doing now, and worked very well for a while. There was another guy before Title, though, who Justin Bittler, that was doing a lot of mortgage brokerage in the area. But with Title, it was just, we spoke to this earlier, it was all new to me. I was used to dealing with a banker who would never call you back, and you didn't know whether the loan was going to go, what was going to happen. You know,
Sure.
All of a sudden, I had somebody that was working for me, and Rob and I did a lot of stuff together. And I think we reminded Rob of this in the office one day that he did one. We closed one in 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is amazing.
That's crazy.
Something that we were under pressure, under the gun, and we had to do it, and we did it.
A very different timeline from what we're seeing nowadays, for sure. Yep. So as far as the two of you working together, do you get a lot of opportunities? I know your desks are somewhat adjacent or, within the same space. Are you working on a lot of the same deals together simultaneously and picking up various pieces? And
100%. I'm like, Jake, let's get together. We got to go over this. And then every time there's an issue, anything that pops up, we all put our heads together, figure out how we're going to deal with it, see what the best plan is, and then we execute. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. We do
so
that
collaborative. It's like, because we also lean on Jess and Rob pretty frequently to, just problem solve through things because they have 20 years of experience each.
Yep.
So it's definitely a very collaborative environment, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, because it's, no one holds all the pieces to the puzzle. So it's like you say, like, hey, this is what we got going on. This is what I think I'm going to do. And they're like, well, did you think of this? And
right.
Then you're like, crap.
Back to the drawing board.
Right. We see a lot of that in real estate, too. Our office in Fairleigh, we're incredibly fortunate to have a very tight-knit family, a lot of realtors that we all kind of lean on each other, collect feedback, or just talk about situations to get the idea of, are we crazy or are the people we're dealing with crazy?
Yeah.
The latter.
We've lost a lot of that because of COVID, because previous to COVID, we had a meeting and then we'd have a tour and then we'd all sit in the truck and badmouth the other realtors and we'd go to a house and they'd say, well, have you talked about this with the guy? And, if you need a price reduction, whatever. And that was, I thought, was extremely helpful, and it brought us closer together as a group too.
I do
We're not
miss
doing
that
that anymore.
No, I know. I do miss that. I wish it was happening still. We tried to bring it back a couple of times, but it's just hard. Everyone's so busy. I mean, I'm sure you guys are seeing that too in your sector, that everyone is just so out straight that it's very hard to have any extra time or any free time really to go out and see listings. I mean, we were just discussing this if financial agents went out to listings or not. It's not really a thing besides the open house element that, as we discussed. But it's definitely for realtors. I mean, we spend so much time on the road, but we're hardly ever looking at each other's listings unless we have a buyer. Whereas you guys are looking at listings constantly with buyers, with various parties that want to purchase something. And you don't really work with sellers at all, right? I mean, just to establish that, I mean, that's not really something that, the loan officer or like the mortgage element doesn't necessarily apply to somebody who either owns their home outright or has a mortgage already, except for the refi element, which you touched on, Jake, is an element that you can work on in the future if rates drop to a certain percentage where they're favorable again.
And there are some times like when someone reaches out to us who is selling their home, but they also want to buy. So they want to know, like, what do I got to do when I sell to make this go through? Because a lot of times, and a lot of people don't know this, is let's say you have a lot of debt you want to pay off.
Mhm.
Well, you got to pay that off with the sale of your home, and it needs to show up on the right paperwork. So if
Right.
you never asked me about that, you sell your house, and now you have all these debts.
Yeah.
I can't take care of it now. You
Right.
should have done it when you sold your house. Now there's a few extra steps that are going to have to happen.
Yep.
So it does help for sellers to reach out, especially if they plan to buy. you know,
Sure,
something
right.
else.
If it's a two-part deal, that makes a lot of sense. And that's our responsibility as realtors, too, to present that that's the situation. Because we run into that a lot. We have a number of projects right now that we're working on, a seller that will also be making a purchase, sometimes making the purchase in order to sell their home, which is tricky.
I'm seeing a lot of like apprehension from people who are selling with the hope to buy because they're like, I know the house will sell super quickly. They're more concerned about buying the next property and how long that might take.
Mhm.
So it's trying to put them at ease to say, you know what, we'll structure this so that the timeline will flow properly. You won't be left homeless for months,
Sure.
searching for a home. So
Yeah. Well, and it's very important, too. I mean, I've mentioned health and safety previously, and having those people that are buying also be in a position where they can comfortably buy, where they're not, shuffling from one residence to the next, and then having, if the next property doesn't fall together at the same exact time, not having the deal put their health and safety in jeopardy. It's a big responsibility. We play with a lot of high stakes in this business.
And I'm curious too, like how many times, because we have buyers reach out to us about properties that either just they don't qualify for, or just 100% will not qualify for the product that they're going, whether it's FHA, VA.
Yep.
So I'm curious, like how many people we have stopped from you having to go see the house when they would have never have qualified for it in the first place. Because a lot of times they'll send me 3 properties in a row, boom, 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 and I'll be like, no, that's not going to go FHA. The paint is horrible. Or
I try to send my buyers through a loan officer or at least somebody to put eyes on a property to say, please give us a reason if this will not fly. So we then can be prepared for the event of, needing to figure out, what specific properties will apply to this buyer. We've had a lot of that, Jake.
10 years ago, it was almost impossible to get a pre-qual letter from a lender.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes took weeks.
Oh, my God.
Well, because proof of employment was like actually getting a statement from your employer and getting your W-2s and getting all your tax return information. If you didn't have it handy, was a process of tracking that back down and sometimes submitting a request. Right. I mean, modern technology has really expedited things. I mean, that's kind of an obvious statement, but I think it's also something to point out when talking about how busy we've all been. I mean, we're kind of working with the system that can churn us, can churn a lot of things simultaneously. And we end up dealing with it and running it in a way that's somewhat, keeping it steered forward so it doesn't go off the rails. It's a lot of what we're doing on a daily basis. Do you find that you're friends with a lot of your coworkers, like you are buddies or like we've become buddies? Is that kind of the environment that you're working within regularly?
Definitely.
Yeah, you don't want to just walk into our office without you want to know you're there because you don't know what you're going to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very fun environment for sure.
Is it?
Like that we have a lot of inside jokes. Like we have a weekly meeting on Tuesdays where a lot of times it just gets down the rabbit hole and we have to be like, all right, back on topic because we get along so well.
And there's always a leader, probably like Mike, who
I'm an instigator.
He's an instigator.
Yeah. It's the same in our meetings. I'll pull some stuff that I really shouldn't pull.
Well, Dale's been there for so long. I mean, I would say,
I can get away with a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, and Dale is technically our managing broker of the Fairleigh office, so there is a
technically.
Technically, we don't have to highlight that role here too much. But no, but I think that the camaraderie and the element of having a fun place to work is also what really translates into people's experience working with you
I've
too.
noticed with Darren that like any profession, realtors are cliquey. They click. He's close to some other realtors, and I'm wondering whether you guys are close with guys from title or whatever, but they're I guess not.
I'm pretty close.
No,
with,
I don't have
with
issues.
Rich and Jake Veers, and I went to school with Jake, so
Yeah, Josh
Yeah,
Bennett's a
you're-
good one.
yeah, Josh is a great guy. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Josh is a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I imagine though, with us as realtors, we are working in concert with other realtors
Yeah.
so much more than you're actually working with any other loan officers.
Yeah.
It'd be somewhat bizarre for you guys to be like, we're gonna put our rates and our offerings against each other for these people to then hopefully lose business because we've then convinced people to call somebody else.
Yeah, typically for loan officers, the only like professional connections with loan officers is like maybe a loan officer that offers products that are specialty.
Sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
when someone comes to you, you're like, hey, we don't do commercial. We don't do commercial.
Who's the rehab?
Here's a
loan guy?
great
Right.
commercial loan lender that we know.
Yeah.
or someone who maybe operates in a state or something that
Different state.
Rob
yeah.
has loan officer friends that operate like in Massachusetts and
Yep.
stuff,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
other states. So
Which
it's
is
like
great.
they can send each
Yeah,
other
Rob-
business across state lines.
Rob did that fairly recently for me. He referred me over to Ledyard or somebody. Then it was
Yeah.
a commercial kind of thing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean those relationships are so key too, though, because if you do have that one-off that you can't service through your own offerings, I mean we've been doing that with other realtors too, where we refer out various things that we can't work with, and we're able to work with some really great agents in that regard. But it definitely adds a layer of complication. You're also very easily handing off business in the future because there are these transactions that maybe this one's commercial or maybe this one's a trailer, but then there's a single family down the road that we can work with, but we just have to, kind of take those on the shoulder or on the chin, I guess would be the better example or expression, and just say, it is what it is. We can't work with certain things, so we're not going to halt a situation. It's all about taking care of the people. I'm glad to hear. I mean, so as far as, working with the people in your office, are you finding that a lot of the extracurriculars are bringing you guys together? I know you've been at a lot of our events for Sotheby's. I've seen also a lot of just photography of the gang kind of out on the town, dressed up for various events. I mean, is that something that Rob's really fostering as a employee culture, or what's the driving force?
I think it comes down to our core values. One of our pinnacle core values is to get out in the community and give back to the community and be a part of community events and things like that. So it gives us a reason to get all together and go out and give back, be a part of things. And so it's like last year doing the Chad half marathon. Mike, Rob, and I ran the half marathon. The rest of our employees in the office did the 5K walk and everything. And it was just a great way for us to get out there together on a weekend and all spend some time together. And
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
It's super important for Rob and Jess that they have created a fun place to work. Like it's very important to them because they know when their employees are happy, there's good results, and that then translates to the clients.
Yeah.
So I'm so fortunate, and I mean we're fortunate we work for Rob and Jess because that's an advanced mindset to have for an employer.
Oh yeah,
it's not the norm.
No.
And the results you can get by having an environment like that, it's crazy. Right?
Yeah. Well, and we see that with Sotheby's. I mean, I would argue that we are one of the better brokerages, and we see a lot of talent that retains, or that the brokerage retains, primarily because it's a quality organization that we also see our clients benefit from being affiliated with. I imagine that any of us realtors that are worth our salt wouldn't stick around with a brokerage we felt was disserving our clients or dissatisfying our clients either. And Dale can speak to some of that too, if you choose. I mean, about you've been with Sotheby's since it was Lang McLaury for a long time.
Yes.
I mean, and it was a quality organization back then too, with Buff and the gang, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Buff was fundamental in building a good firm. Well, Buff's dad started out in the business years ago. He's since passed away, but we've always had a good core group.
Mm-hmm.
We try to do things in our office that I hope we'll get back to doing more of them now that COVID isn't over and the market seems to be calming a little bit. But for instance, this month, August, we'll have our monthly meeting, but we all meet at a dock in Orford, jump on my boat, Chuck Clifford's boat, and we cruise up the river to my wife's cottage, and we sit around and have coffee and donuts and hash things out. And it just, it makes a happy occasion.
Yeah.
It's fun to be out on the river a little bit and everybody chatting. And so we'd like to do, I hope we get to do more of those kind of things.
Yeah, we're working on that, getting that back into the fold, because it's been tough with the pandemic. As far as, I mean, mentors go, people in the business that you're looking up to and working with, I mean, are you guys identifying that there's other figureheads within the institution or the organization that you're kind of gravitating towards, or are you looking more towards like broad scale, like let's say like a Dave Ramsey or somebody who's a more of an influential figurehead rather than an individual that you're personally connected to? I know, I mean, I've just been so lucky with Dale that as far as like other mentorship avenues go, there's not really much else, you know, even like coaching or something else in the real estate sector is not really appealing to me because we have everything going on here. You know, his experience and me in the trenches and the ability to bounce back and forth is incredibly valuable. I mean, are you guys finding that that is developing around you, something that you're outsourcing? What's the kind of the route that you're taking in that avenue?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Rob's the top of mind. I mean, especially being local, you know, it's hard. I can't believe I was able to find a broker, you know, that had bosses like Rob and Jess. Like, I just can't. And it's difficult in a local area to find a place to work like that. Like in the city, you can. It's probably going to be much different, and maybe those types of places will have some mentor above, like Dave Ramsey or something like that. I don't feel that high a level of mentorship is applicable to our very unique local area.
No, of course. Yeah.
That's, you know, if you I was looking at one of the realtor magazines not long ago, and I noticed that some of the old timer people that have been in the loan processing but keep switching. They go from firm to firm to firm, and I think you guys have latched on to one of the better firms in the business. And
Agreed.
So important. And that thing somebody touched on a little while ago about community involvement. I said this to Darren when he and I started together. I said, you know, you got to get out there and be a member of the chamber. And Jesus, all of a sudden now he's president of the chamber. You know? And so
took it seriously.
And
Tell me.
And the contacts are phenomenal.
Oh, they are. They're huge. Yeah, I mean, and to speak to my contributions a little bit, I mean, I started with Little Rivers Healthcare Board of Directors because it's an institution that offers a lot of resources to people that are in need or struggling with addiction, and I had come off the booze business, so I was kind of looking to give back in reverse to how I'd contributed to the world in the former. And then that led me into a lot of other organizations where they just needed youthful presence and people to show up. And I'm trying to broadcast that to our generation, because we're all of the same generation with the exception of Dale. You can be a member of our generation by proxy, but not by age bracket.
After my nap, I could.
Yeah. You'll be back in. You'll be in your 30s again. But honestly, it's very hard to get anybody in our age bracket to contribute. Everybody's so busy. There's a lot of stuff going on, and then there's a lot of people that really just don't feel the same dedication to community or to giving back. That, you know, it just doesn't take a priority. It's good to hear that that's a mindset that's fostered in Legacy and with you guys.
And I'll say that was a hard thing for me, just because coming from the jail and law enforcement, you know, almost for 10 years doing that. When I get home, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody.
I understand that.
Right. So you do that for so long, and for a while, like, police are just so ostracized. So I'm used to, like, people don't want to talk to me either. You know?
Yeah.
So coming from that mindset to this that was a hard transition to get back involved again, because I spent so long outside of that.
Yep.
And it's great. You know, it's not as bad, but it was a transition for me to get into that, to be like, I got to talk to people now.
Yeah. Right. And you're not talking to them when they're at their worst. You're actually able to speak to them when they're in a positive mindset and maybe hopeful. You know, that's
hopeful, excited. Like,
I think it's great that you guys have found careers that you really, really, truly love. You know, I'm assuming you both do, and because I've been through, you know, I've done some different things in my lifetime, and it took me a while to get in the real estate business to realize that I was in the business that I wanted to be in finally, and I've been in it now 40-some years. You know?
Yeah, and people think they're stuck. Like, they're like, I'm 30, I've been doing this job for this long, I'm stuck. And it's like, no. It's what you're being told, but you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of need for various services and professions out there. So if anybody listening to this in the current timeline or the future, you know, wants to do something, I mean, find somebody who's doing it. Start doing it and then see if it's a good fit for you. I mean, that's how I started with real estate. I mean, I didn't just, you know, magically stumble upon this. I was very fortunate to be given the great career by Dale, but at the same token, I mean, it's something that I learned by doing, and you just have to repeatedly do it. And if it's something that you like doing, do it forever. I think that, it's kind of, unfortunately we don't have enough of that. There's a lot of, I guess I'd say a lot of stop-start in various situations where people just pick something up and put it down and then they forget about it. And then it's just a past endeavor.
Mike, you mentioned you're in the early retirement mode though, right? You want to.
Yeah. So that's where my brain is always thinking about
Yep.
that, how am I going to do that?
Yep.
Is this move going to translate to that? But also retirement doesn't necessarily mean not working. It just means, that's the thing. That's where it kind of broke down for me at the PD was, I could do this and retire early, but I'm just going to be miserable the whole time.
Yeah.
Where I could do this and not be miserable the whole time. Realistically, maybe I have retired early.
Right.
I don't.
And I think, you made a great point earlier too about, once kids come into the mix, that time that you have to grind and really just focus on the business or your personal development or professional development kind of takes a backseat, of course. So, that's something that, Jake and I are in a different situation where we don't have any kids at this point, but it's something that, as far as looking forward, there's a definite break in the business sector if the personal life adds new hurdles to it. So that's something that, is also something to be aware of, something to always be thinking about.
Yeah, that something that I didn't do correctly, and I think you guys are doing is taking personal time.
Yeah.
I think, you got to do that. And I keep ranting on him about that, and you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And so many jobs don't reinforce that.
No.
Or allow for it.
Yeah, and you should never take your personal day and then people are looking down at you for it.
Yeah.
Like, personal days should be normal because in this world is stressful. It's so stressful.
Oh yeah.
You can't just keep going all the time. You'll break down.
Yeah.
Burnout is real in this business.
I
think that's another thing that Rob and Jess really they force us to take vacation time and go plan a trip somewhere, do something fun. You gotta get out of it for a week or so and just kind of reset back to normal so you can have that energy and that love for it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And it's great to have those people at the helm. I know we've been so thankful for our first guest on this podcast and our regional manager, Ben, because he's just been a fantastic leader, somebody who's always just upbeat and no matter what's happening, the ship is still sailing forward. It might be slightly off course, but it's at least still on the same track.
And he's approachable.
Yeah.
Which I never understood why bosses want to be so unapproachable.
Yeah.
Well, same with realtors too. We get so much business because we're just friendly. We're just we go, we hang out, we swap some stories. We're there, we're pleasant. People are we want to accomplish A, B, C. We say you can do B, C, D. We work with the situations, and we've heard more often than not that the rigidity of some professionals is a real turnoff. And I think that we all experience that on a daily basis too, though, that, we work with certain people and it's okay, not calling you again. It's just, thanks for giving me an ulcer. That was exactly what I needed in this
it's
busy day.
hard to, I have tried since Darren and I got together to share everything with him. I want him to know everything that I know about this business. And I don't see a lot of people doing that in different businesses. And I had that kind of a mentor when I started, and as I mentioned in the podcast last week, the guy's still my best friend, and that was in the 70s we started together. But I want him to be extremely successful and more successful than I am.
We're working on it.
Awesome.
We've been out straight.
Yeah,
it's been crazy. But that's also, part of the reason we're able to be as busy as we are is because we have great guys like you to work with.
Yeah.
So, it's a hats off to you guys for keeping up with our insanity and keeping up with the fact that I can't shut up.
We appreciate you guys.
As the podcast is named, I can't stop talking. That's to everybody. So I guess, I really just want to shoot the shit and swap some stories. What's been going on with you guys? What's a funny, maybe an exchange that both of you were involved in? It's just, this is the point of the podcast is really to just collect some stories.
Oh, man.
We've had a lot.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
Is there a top one or two, maybe some hot points you'd like to hit on? I'm interested in the details as to, of course, we're not trying to, disclose or speak to anything we shouldn't, but however, with some generalities, I think it's valuable for anybody to hear some circumstances that you've happened upon. I mean, we have more stories than we'd like to share.
Yes.
Where to start? There's been a lot of really tough files this year, I feel like.
Lots of files.
Tough
like,
deals. Like
yeah.
Just where, things change halfway through the process.
Sure.
Or, people maybe are not forthright about certain things from their past, and they think that it won't come up, but it always does. It always does.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
these underwriters are so thorough. They're like detectives in their own right. They're digging through all these different documents. They're looking specifically for things that they can point out and be like, oh no, you can't qualify for this product.
Right.
So
If you think it's gonna come up, just say it.
Yeah.
Right? Just say it. And
Disclose.
we may go like, hey, that's not a big deal.
It's
Don't worry
just
about it.
it's just truth. Tell the truth.
Just say
That's
it
all
because
is.
we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many places that they check all this stuff. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna come out,
Yeah.
and
No,
it's
there's-
not fun once your earnest money deposit's on the
Yeah.
line.
no, especially if it's a large one.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost.
Mike, you sound like you're interviewing a criminal sitting across from you. Just tell us the
Just
truth.
give us the information.
We're gonna find the bodies.
It's the right
We're
answer.
Gonna find
It's
those
the
women.
only answer.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
only
right.
answer is coordinates on this piece of paper. Did you actually, just to bounce back to your career, did you get to interrogate like some high stakes situations as a cop? Because I love true crime. It's something I watch regularly in my free time.
I mean, high stakes in Hanover is
Not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Where'd you get the pot?
There's some, but like, there's a lot. I mean, the college, any college,
Sure.
you're getting sex assaults.
Oh,
So there's those.
Yeah. Those are.
Um,
course.
and how you interrogate and interview for sex assaults has changed so much over the years. Like,
Yeah.
they used to interrogate the victim.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
So the victim would come in
Right.
and they'd treat her or him like they were lying.
You dress the
exactly.
individual down.
And then you wonder why they don't report it again.
Yeah, right.
Right. So that's what everyone's trying to change. Some police departments are still old school, new whatever.
Yeah.
So that's like, actually, it's a very complicated interview process to do that, because it's like you can't use leading questions. You gotta ask feeling questions. The way you ask questions, you have to play off of what them. So you can't just go in there with a list of questions. You go off of their responses.
Sure.
And like, you have to focus so much, like, because you're like, all right, she just used a trigger word.
Right.
I'm going after that.
She
Like,
crossed
maybe
her arms.
Maybe
She's
you write that
uncomfortable.
down real quick, and you're like, I'm gonna address that.
Yeah,
you
right.
know? And there's a special school for training how to do that. Right? Just using empathy. But really, when it comes to like criminals, and you can tell. You can tell when someone's lying. Like, it's what did someone say to us one time? What is the go-to lying phrase? Not to the best of my knowledge.
To the best of my knowledge.
If anyone ever
Says that.
says that, like, did you do this? To the best of my knowledge, I did not. Like, what?
Yeah.
Or,
right. Especially if you're
or
talking
the
about,
other
like, your
one is
experience.
when they'll text you and be like, just out of curiosity,
Yeah. If
theoretically,
Yeah.
if this were to happen,
Right.
would that change anything with my loan?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
What happened?
Yeah.
what did you do?
How about non-theoretically and factually what happened? Because this is getting out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine that's carried a lot into your new profession, being able to read people and to gauge the legitimacy of their positions, or at least like, people that are pretty dicey on the, confirming phrases, things that lock them into.
It's a strength and it's a huge curse at the same time.
Yeah.
Because
They're lying
I
and
look
they're not.
into everything so closely.
Sure.
And it's great because it makes me absorb more information. Just not even just happen to do with borrowers, but looking into underwriting guidelines and stuff. Like,
Sure.
I will just dig and just get fixated on stuff until I have it completely figured out, and then I move on.
Yeah.
So it's good, but sometimes I waste time doing it.
That's fair.
Get
I'm
down
like,
the rabbit hole.
I just
It's
spent an
like-
hour doing this and I learned a lot, but I got to move on to something.
Yeah.
But it's that skill though is so crucial because it's like for our VA deal that we have going right now.
Yeah, the one that Jake and I are involved in. Yeah.
Mike's processing that one,
Mm-hmm.
and so the appraisal came back and the underwriter conditioned for a inspection on the foundation, and so we had to go into the VA guidelines, find supporting evidence to show this is not a requirement.
Sure.
The lender doesn't require this. The VA does not
Yeah.
require this.
Sure.
The underwriter, or no, it was the appraiser.
The appraiser.
The appraiser was asking us to get that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
it written into
And
the
I
report.
read that and I'm like, He
Nah.
can't ask for that.
Right. Yeah, right.
I'm like, he is confused.
Yeah.
It's not in the guidelines anywhere where it says
Sure.
that this is a requirement. It's just simply not.
Yeah.
So we were able to take that back to the appraiser and say, look, here's what the guidelines say. They do not specifically call for this.
No dice.
And so then the appraiser went and called the VA, whatever, it was like Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so they support it. They were like, yeah, actually, this is not a requirement. So go ahead and remove it from the report. And what do you know? We're able to get it right.
And I guarantee you, any other lender, you would have been getting an inspection.
Yeah,
you would have had to.
Would have had to have that happen.
We question everything.
But that's an appraiser you just cross off your list, though. Really, I've had those guys over the years, and I just don't want to deal with that. Yeah.
No, and unfortunately, we see a lot of that nonsense.
Yeah.
With various parties.
With inspectors too.
Yeah, with inspectors, and just parties that give an opinion on a property, because that opinion, I mean, we also work with an inspection contingency verbiage in Vermont, New Hampshire that states that it's a level of satisfaction that determines somebody's willingness to stay in the deal, which is a pretty flexible definition. Right. That we've seen used to the extremes in both cases. You know, I mean, it's really, we've. I think we're also going to see a lot of changes come out of the pandemic period from just how much volume happened and how many problems arose, because there is a lot of that. That's just, stuff that doesn't make any sense. But any other stories or contributions? I know we've had you both for quite a while today, so